Snapchat is one of the most talked about apps among all designers, and not for the best reasons. So in this video, we're gonna dive into the public's biggest complaints and then jump into Figma and tackle 3 big UX issues. Let's dive in. One of the biggest things that people have complained about online about Snapchat is unclear iconography. You'll look at these icons and they don't really follow UX best practices. They don't really fall in line with what we see normally in other apps, and they're simply not intuitive. Another big complaint is that there are just too many features and it's confusing and difficult to find what you're looking for inside of Snapchat. For example, there are stories among your friends. There's also the discover area where you can watch like videos and a lot of ads and things like that pop up there. And then there's this newer thing called Spotlight that is definitely taking a page from TikTok's book, and all of those things together are kind of confusing. So that's one area that we're definitely going to tackle. And lastly, one big complaint that tons of people have mentioned is that they accidentally start a video chat within a chat all the time. And when I kind of dove into why this might be, definitely looks like a proximity issue and a tappability issue. So we'll be tackling that as well. But before we dive in, I think it's important that we actually step back and think about why the app was designed the way it was. Along the way, when I was researching, I actually discovered a lot of people saying that Snapchat is designed poorly on purpose. Let me explain. Snapchat's target audience is teenagers, and it was really important to Snapchat that it felt to its audience like it was made for them, made for this generation and not for their parents. Much like Facebook did in the very beginning of the social media age, Snapchat leans really far into this youthful exclusivity concept. So they want to reward people who do understand how to use Snapchat, the younger generation, and who use it most often. There's a lot of maximalist design, tons and tons of features, things that you discover as you go and as you use the app more. It doesn't feel minimalistic and corporate because that's not what teenagers would want in an app, especially a video and photo sharing app. With that aside, I still think that there is a lot of improvements that we could make to Snapchat, so let's go dive into Figma. First, I took a bunch of screenshots and started dropping them into Figma. This is when I saw the opportunity to combine a few of Snapchat's features into one tab. Stories, Discover, and this newer Spotlight feature are all very similar in my mind. We'll get more into that later, but for now, I decided to adapt the tab bar so that this 4th tab is just Stories, which will house all of the above, and that leaves us an extra spot to put Profile so that we can actually remove that profile button from the top left corner of each and every screen within the app. Now that Profile is its own tab, we won't need this back button here either. Next up is the Camera tab. When you're inside the camera and you tap anywhere on the screen or on that smiley face, the tab bar actually changes to a different navigation. Create, Scan, Browse, and Explore. And I could not for the life of me figure out how Create and Browse were any different, so I decided to merge those. And I also noticed that the Scan icon also appears at the bottom of the right side toolbar, so I removed that too. What made more sense to me was to call those lenses that you've saved and that you can scroll through in the camera view your favorites. So now we have favorites, which should show you those filters just above the bottom nav, and browse, which should take you to that full screen to discover new lenses. As I'm thinking about it, favorites could also be called saved. I'm not really sure which one I like better. Let me know in the comments what you think. The scan feature, where the app looks at your scene and recommends a filter for you, seems to be something that Snapchat is pushing. So since I removed it from the bottom nav, I decided to add a new fixed position scan button on the browse screen. Next, I wanted to tackle this confusing icon on the memories screen. It's a circle with a check mark, but it's so stylized that it's really not clear what's going to happen when I tap on it. I decided to take a cue from iOS and change it to the word select. This is definitely more clear and consistent with other platforms where this action takes place, like the iOS Photos app. Speaking of icons, these call and video call icons are way too close to the back button on this chat screen. And for that matter, why does the back arrow point to the right? Very odd choice. I ended up moving it to the left side of the screen, pointing left. Lastly, I mocked up what I think the story screen could look like, combining what's currently Stories, Discover, and Spotlight. They're all opportunities to look at content from both your friends and people you aren't yet familiar with, just like TikTok and Reels. This is where Snapchat could place their ad content, since it's a feed of content that you can scroll through. Let us know in the comments if you agreed or disagreed with any of the changes that I made. Obviously, I don't work for Snapchat and I was just doing this for fun. This is also something that is really good practice, especially for newer UX designers. So I hope that this inspired you to take on a redesign of your own. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in a future video. Bye!